Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Praptasya Kalyana Gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam 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 Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nitya Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Seno Mahaprabhu Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramarjanado Jukta Sabhaktam Sa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavad Prasadam Satvana Triptam Hari Bhakta Sangha Chaturvedha Shri Bhagavad Prasadam Kridvaiva Triptim Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Radhikama Dabayarapara Madhurya Leela Guna Rupanamna Shri Radhika Dabayarapara Madhurya Leela Guna Rupan Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Ne kunja yuno Rati Kerisidyai Jayali Vir Jokte apekshaniya nekunjayuno ratike disijay jajali vijukti tatrati daksha ativala vasya vande gurashi charunaro vrindam ativala vasya vande guru sakya dharitvena samasta shastri rukta tathava vyataiva sadhuvi shastri rukta tathava kintu pravarja priya eva tasya vande gurushi charanaro vrindam yasya prasada bhagavat prasada yasya prasadam nagati kutapi yasya prasadam nagati kutapi dayam stubam tasya yasatri sandhyam vande gurashi charanaro vrindam vande gurashi charanaro vrindam vande gurashi charanaro vrindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Nama Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatari Shata Ine Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachatari Shata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Oh Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram. Hare Yaraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govindaram Shrimadhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavad-Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattaraguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Haribo, Haribo, Nitai Gaura Pramanande. Jai Vishnu Paramahamsa Prabhupada Jakacharya Suttara Sarasi Shima His Divine Grace of Bhachan Vina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Pratishta Bhividi Samstapaka Char Vaishnav Ceremony Parit Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Gauriya Guru Vargapati Tudhari Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhakta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Guna Sadgoswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai. Ananta Kuri Vaishnavindi Ki Jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Paramadayal Se Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai. Prema Nama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandana Shriman Gauranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaura Hari Mahavrana Avatar Ki Jai. Golokera Pramadhan Harinam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai. Yogadharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai. Kriyapndanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopagupna Radha Kun Samakun Giriraj Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Mathurdham Ki Jai. Their Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai. Shri Mayapurna Madhip Eka Chakradham Ki Jai. Jai Parama Karuna Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai. Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Pridham Ki Jai. Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Srimati Subhadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai. Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman Ji Ki Jai. Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Kanishingare Bhagavan Ki Jai. Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Maharani Vrindi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai. Shri Radharani Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled bodies. All glories to the assembled bodies. All glories to the assembled bodies. All glories, all glories, all glories. Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga.
Namaste Narasimhaya Praladaladaine प्रह्लादलाददायिने हिरण्यकशिपूर्वक्षः शिलटङ्कानखालये शिलटङ्कानखालये इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंह मही नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह मही नरसिंह हृदये नरसिंह नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलवरे नाकामद्भुतशृङ्गा दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जगदीश हरे केशवद्रीता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय प्रह्लाद महाराज जय प्रह्लाद महाराज जय प्रह्लाद महाराज जय प्रह्लाद महाराज जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद जय जय गुरुदेव 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 जय जय गुरुदेव गुरुदेव जय जय गुरुदेव। श्री भक्ति विघ्न विनाशक श्री लक्ष्मी नरसिंहदेव भगवान की, भक्त शिरोमणि श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। Sing with it?
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पाबो एई अभिलाषी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः जे तो मारा शरण लोए तारा वंचा पूर्ण होए कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन बासी मोरा ये अभिलाष रास कुंज दियो बास। आयने हरि बो सदा जुगल रूप रासी। এই নিবেদন ধারো সখীরানুগাতা করো। সেবাধিকারা দিয়ে করো নিজ দাসী। দীনা কৃষ্ণা দাসে কোয়ে এই যে না মোরা হয়ে। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जे न भासी। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा जे न भासी। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी। नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। जायो तुलसी महारानी जायो तुलसी महारानी जायो तुलसी महारानी जायो तुलसी महारानी। जयो वृंदा देवी जयो वृंदा देवी जयो वृंदा देवी जयो वृंदा देवी। Nitya Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. तुलसी देवी महारानी की जय, वृंदा देवी की जय।
for the blessing of the goodness of the Lord. Here, just like all-pervading personality Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge into the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma Projita, Kaitravatra, Paramo Nimatsaranam Satam, Vedyam Vastava Matra Vastu, Shivadam Tapa Trayon Moon, Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamani Krite, Kimva Purir Ishvaraha, Sadyo Hridaya Bhavidyatetra, Kutri Bahi Susu Subhistakshana. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truths uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam, sukhamukad amrita dravya samgitam, pibata bhagavatam rasam alayam, muhur ahor raska bhuvibhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of C. Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shindakam Swakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Iriyantastuhi Badrani Vidunati Suhit Satam. To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad-Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. Nastapresu bhadresu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati utamasloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalobhadayasche cheta itar navidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. Evam prasana manaso bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvasamsaya siyante chasya karmani drista evat manishvare. Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Shishi Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing, playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyze that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis, who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana.
The spiritual master is very dear because he's expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
I offer my most humble obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna.
Therefore, I offer my humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advance.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master.
master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of my spiritual master.
Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchit Ananda Vigraha Anadi Ravi Govinda Sarvakarana Karana
Chintamani Prakata Satma Sukalpa Vriksha
Chintamani Prakara Satma Sutaka
Lakshavrite Susuravira Vipaliantam
Lakshyavrite Suravira Vipalayantam
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Saivyamanam
Lakshmi Sahasra Sata Sambrahma Sevyamanam
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham
Venum Kvanantam Aravinda Dayavatak
Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam
Param Vadas Samasitam
Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Visesha Sobam
Dharmaputi Kamaniya Vishesha
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Alola Chandra Kalasat Manamalya Vamsi
Alola Chandra Kalasa Panamadyavam
Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam
Ratnam Gadam Pranayakiri Kalavilas
Shyamam Tribanga Lalitam Niyata Prakasam
Yamam
Tribanga Lalitam Niyata
Prakasam
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabam Adurlabam Atma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoran Latapi Manasomuni Pungamanam Sopyasti Yad Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chaitam Jagadanda Kotim Yachakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayaya Danta Andanta Rasta Paramanu Chayantarastam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Samprapya Rupa Mahima Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusaha sukta yameva nigama pratitastuvanti. Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 5, Text 33. Tada samhatya janyoyam bhagavat shakti choditaha sadasatvam upadaya chobayam sasrijurhyada. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Thus, when all these became assembled by force of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly came into being by accepting both the primary and secondary causes of creation. Purport. By His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, it is clearly mentioned that the Supreme Personality of Godhead exerts His different energies in the creation. It is not that He Himself is transformed into material creations. He expands Himself by His different energies as well as by His plenary portions. In a corner of the spiritual sky of Brahmajyoti, a spiritual cloud sometimes appears, and the covered portion is called the Mahat Tattva. The Lord then, by His plenary portion as Mahavishnu, lies down within the water of the Mahat Tattva, and the water is called the causal ocean, Karana Jala. While Mahavishnu sleeps within the causal ocean, innumerable universes are generated along with his breathing. Then these universes are floating, and they are scattered all over the causal ocean. They stay only during the breathing period of Mahavishnu. In each and every universal globe, the same Mahavishnu enters again as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu and lies there on the serpent-like Shesha incarnation. From his navel sprouts a lotus stem, and on the lotus, Brahma, the Lord of the universe, is born. Brahma creates all forms of living beings of different shapes in terms of different desires within the universe. He also creates the sun, moon, and other demigods. Therefore, the chief engineer of the material creation is the Lord Himself, as confirmed in Bhagavad-Gita 9:10. It is He only who directs the material nature to produce all sorts of moving and non-moving creations. There are two modes of material creation: the creation of the collective universes, as stated above, done by the Mahavishnu, and the creation of the single universe. Both are done by the Lord, and thus the universal shape, as we can see, takes place. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus, when all these became assembled by force of the energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, this universe certainly came into being by accepting both the primary and secondary causes of creation. The primary cause is Krishna, secondary cause is Lord Brahma. So this is further explained, 9th chapter, 10th verse. Maya dakshena prakriti suite sacharacharam hetananena konteya jagat viparivartate. This is a very important verse. Prabhupada often quotes it, and it says that this material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Okay, so this is an extremely important verse, and due to this verse, we can understand how nefarious and nasty is modern education, because it rejects this verse. It rejects everything about this verse. It rejects Krishna. It rejects Brahma. it rejects the whole process of creation that's explained in this chapter, the cause of all causes. And therefore, people shouldn't listen to it. They shouldn't be subjected to it, because it creates a wedge between God and man. A wedge is something that separates, and that's the whole theme of modern education, to cancel God and simply think that by some type of fortuitous accident the material world was created, and therefore one is not responsible to any so-called mythical God. There's only the material nature and the material body, and therefore the whole subtle force of material knowledge is to convince a person that sense gratification is the goal of life, and the more money you make, the more sense gratification you get. And the more things you accumulate, the more you are a prominent person. One who has the most things is the most prominent person. So we see Bill Gates has a house that costs $130 million. Did you know that? His house is worth $130 million. In Medina, you can go see it, drive there and see it. And now that he's getting a divorce, the real estate agents are saying, it's going to be a hard sale. Who wants to buy a $130 million house that's 60,000 square feet? This temple is 12,000 square feet. So his house is 60,000 square. It's like, 6 times bigger than this temple. And just he and his wife live in there. Well, now they're going to get divorced, so who's going to buy it? It's such a big house, and it costs so much to maintain. You need a whole group of people. I mean, at least 15, 20 people to maintain the house, and it has all these gadgets in it, and it's impossible to even imagine that 2 people could live in such a big house. So the whole idea is the more things you have, the more you are a prominent person. So therefore, Bezos, he's got many houses. He's got a house in Los Angeles, he's got his apartments in New York, he's got a gigantic house in Seattle, he's got a house in Colorado, and now he wants to go to outer space this week or next week, probably try and build a house on the moon or Mars. Of course, that's not going to happen, but he thinks it's going to happen. So we see the more things you have, the more people consider you to be a prominent and successful person. But it's all nonsense. All these things that people are collecting are not necessary and not actually important at all. They just entangle them in more and more maintenance. You have to maintain all these things. Of course, they'll hire people to maintain everything. Just like in a house, you have to, every year you have to change the filters in the heater, right? And then you have to change the filters in the water purifier. And then you have to check the gutters. And if you have a chimney, you have to have the chimney cleaned every couple of years. And you have to maintain so many different things. You have to pay for the insurance of the house. And you have to also call the exterminator if there are rats or bugs in the house. And you have to get a security system. And sometimes the security system doesn't work properly. You have to call the person who comes and services it. And then your washing machine sometimes breaks down. So you have to buy a new washing machine and hire someone to install it. And the dryer. And then there's this thing and there's that thing. And it's so many things that you have to do to maintain the house, right? So it's entangling. And then you have to pay, let's say you have a house in a particular community, and there's a community committee, so you have to pay money to the committee, maybe $300, $400, $500 a month, a year, a month, for the maintenance, taking the trash away, and this thing and that thing, and it's all very expensive. It's all very entangling, and you have to pay for the water, you have to pay for the electricity, you have to pay for the gas, and every month there's all these things that you have to pay for the maintenance of the house. And then sometimes, your kids, they're taking a bath and they forget to turn the water off, and it floods the bathroom and the water drips down into the kitchen. So you have to call someone to come and repair it. And then in the case of Prabhuji, there's a tree, and the roots are destroying the concrete pathway. So you have to get rid of the tree, and then you have to get rid of the stump. By the way, did the stump go away?
The track is not going further now.
Okay, but the stump.
We grinded the stump, but stump is still there.
I mean, the roots are still there. Yeah.
It's too big.
Yeah. So you see, there's all these problems, the unbelievable problems, and then there could be a storm, and it blows your roof away. That's happened. Or there can be a flood. Look what happened just now in Germany and the Netherlands and Belgium and England and France. Whole houses went floating down the road. The whole house, right? And cars just got upended and thrown all over the place, and trees knocked down. And there's hundreds of people have died in this week. Hundreds of people swept away by these floods. They said it's the worst flood in 200 years, right? So imagine that there's a flood and your whole house is destroyed, and your car and everything. So this is catastrophic. I mean, and it's all attachment. So in other words, you can see it's not necessary. Now what are you going to do? Your house is destroyed. What are you going to do? And then there could be a fire also. It's like I had a fire, my whole house burned down, right? So then you suddenly realize you don't really need all that stuff. It was just accumulated. So Krishna says, this material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings. Under its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. The whole modern education rejects this verse. This is serious. You have to understand how serious it is. It means if by rejecting this verse, you are cursed to take birth over and over again, and to waste all your life seeking sense gratification and accumulating so many objects and things that you don't really need, and thinking that the more you accumulate, the more you are successful, which is false. The whole thing is false. And Prabhupada says, it is clearly stated here that the Supreme Lord, although aloof from all the activities of the material world, remains the Supreme Director. The Supreme Lord is the Supreme Will and the background of this material manifestation. But the management is being conducted by material nature. Now that's an amazing verse. I mean, it's an amazing line. And we discussed this yesterday. So, and we go to the 13th chapter, where it says, 13th chapter, 21st verse, where it says, nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, whereas the living entity is the cause of the various sufferings and enjoyments in this world. Now, I'm going to discuss this verse again. We discussed this a lot yesterday, but I'm going to discuss it again because this is a monumental verse. It explains so many things. And here it says that so when it says that nature is said to be the cause of all material causes and effects, that means you and I are being forced to do everything. Eating, sleeping, mating, defending, passing stool, waking up, working, all these things we're being forced to do it. Okay. But then it says, whereas the living entity is the cause of his various sufferings and enjoyments in this world, that means that although we're forced to sleep, if you sleep to please Krishna, you'll only sleep 6 hours a day. And you'll wake up in the Brahma Muhurta. Whereas the others, they'll go to sleep at 12, 1 o'clock at night, wake up 8, 9, 10 o'clock on the weekends, 12 o'clock. So that's the difference, see? The difference is you're forced to sleep. Everybody's forced to sleep. But how you sleep and for who you're sleeping. So if you're sleeping to serve Krishna, that means you're going to wake up early and chant your rounds and come to Mangala Aarti, etc., and hear the class and so forth. And if you're sleeping independent of Krishna, you'll wake up, you'll go to sleep anytime, you'll wake up anytime. Sometimes you just stay in bed most of the day. And the greatest joke is breakfast in bed. Before you brush your teeth, before you take a bath, And people think this is the best thing in the world, right? As soon as you wake up with your mouth is all full of crud and smells bad and you haven't taken a bath, someone brings you a breakfast and puts it right in front of you, right in the bed, right? And you eat right away. I hope you never do this, but this is considered the real life. But it's real ignorance, you see? So in other words, we're forced to do all these things, but how you do it, that is, you determine that. You're going to do it for Krishna or you're going to do it for sense gratification. So therefore, Krishna is not responsible for the suffering of the living entity, nor is he responsible for the sense gratification of the living entity. Now, this is very hard for people to understand, even devotees. I don't even think most devotees understand this. But these are the facts. Now, there's a very important point here, and that is that the different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. Different manifestations of body and senses among the living entities are due to material nature. There are 8,400,000 different species of life, and these varieties are creations of the material nature. Okay? Now, which body you're going to get, that's determined by how you eat, sleep, mate, and defend. If you eat, sleep, mate, and defend like a pig, you'll get a pig body next life. Like eating in bed when you wake up in the morning, you'll get a pig body, engaging in all kinds of illicit sex and eating all kinds of meat and other nasty things. See? So people are being forced to eat, sleep, mate, and defend, but how they do those things, that's the people are deciding. And if they do those things for Krishna, they become liberated from the modes of material nature, from the destructive passage of time, and by developing all these bad qualities, lust, anger, greed, and so forth. But if you do it for Krishna, you'll be liberated from all those things, and you'll eventually go back to Godhead. So nature is forcing us, everybody, to do things. We're not actually doing them. We're being forced to do them. Eat, sleep, mate, defend, all these things. But how we do it, we are deciding. And because we decide, it creates personal responsibility. But yet, people will blame God, if there is a God. They'll blame God that it's his fault that I'm suffering. It's his fault that I'm attracted to this or that. It's his fault that I'm eating breakfast in bed. So this is explained in where it says, 1 second, let me find it. This is explained in 5th chapter, 15th verse. Let's take a look. 5th chapter, 15th verse, Bhagavad Gita. By the way, everything is in the Bhagavad Gita. We should understand that. And then everything is further explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam. But everything is in the Bhagavad Gita. Trouble is, we don't read Bhagavad Gita enough to know that. So in Bhagavad Gita, it says, therefore the embodied soul, by his immemorial desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, causes his own bewilderment. In other words, those people who make a decision to avoid Krishna consciousness, they cause their own bewilderment and ignorance. It's not Krishna's fault. Consequently, although the living entity is constitutionally eternal, blissful, and cognizant, meaning full of knowledge, due to the littleness of his existence, he forgets his constitutional position of service to the Lord and is thus entrapped by ignorance. And under the spell of ignorance, the living entity claims that the Lord is responsible for his conditional existence. The Vedanta Sutra 2.1.34 also confirms this. Vaisamya nirgrinye na sapek satvat tatahi darsayati. The Lord neither hates nor likes anyone, although he appears to. So, if someone is suffering, they'll eventually blame the Lord. And if you're an atheist, you ignore the Lord. So modern education is all about ignoring the Lord. So, but here it says, if you ignore the Lord, or if you have this desire to avoid Krishna consciousness, it causes bewilderment. And when people become crazy, they engage in all kinds of illicit activities that causes them suffering. And they are in a state of bewilderment. And this is what modern education teaches. It teaches a person to avoid Krishna consciousness. That's the whole purpose of it. There's no spiritual teaching. And if there is some spiritual teaching, it's usually Mayavad philosophy, which is another type of atheism. That's why so many people are becoming atheists in India because of the Mayavadis. They basically teach them that God is not a person. Or you can become God, right? And have breakfast in bed every day. So the whole thing is nonsense. But we think that modern education is good. We think that our children should be exposed to it. But actually, the whole purpose of modern education is to cancel God and to make a person a sense gratifier so that they buy all the junk things that are being manufactured in all the thousands and millions of factories in the world. All these gadgets and this thing and that thing, they're all entangling and they're all unnecessary for life. So this is very interesting, how people become convinced that there's no God and that we should just engage ourselves in sense gratification. So this is further explained by Prabhupada, Adi Lila, chapter 7, verse number 119, where it says, the material potency is the energy of darkness or complete ignorance of spiritual activities. In the material potency, the living entity engages himself in fruitive activities, thinking that he can be happy through expansion in terms of material energy. That is, expansion means collecting all kinds of nonsense things that you don't really need. Like Bill Gates, he has a 60,000 square foot house, right, that costs $130 million, and it's full of junk, of things that he doesn't really need. And now he's going to sell it because he's getting divorced. So what Prabhupada is saying here, the material potency is the energy of darkness, ignorance of spiritual, or complete ignorance of spiritual activities. In the material potency, the living entity engages himself in fruitive activities, thinking that he can be happy through expansion in terms of material energy. This fact is prominently manifest in this age of Kali, because human society, not understanding the spiritual nature, is busily expanding in material activities. The men of the present day are almost unaware of their spiritual identity. They think that they are products of the elements of the material world and that everything will end with the annihilation of the body. Therefore, they conclude that as long as one has a material body consisting of material senses, one should enjoy the senses as much as possible. Since they are atheists, they do not care whether there is a next life. Such activities are described in this verse as avidya karma samgyanya. So this verse is from the Vishnu Purana. Vishnu Shakti Paraprokta Chetra Gyaya Tata Para Avidya Karma Sangyanya Tritiya Saktir Ishyate. So it says the potency of Lord Vishnu is summarized in three categories, namely the spiritual potency, the living entities, and ignorance. The spiritual potency is full of knowledge. The living entities, although belonging to the spiritual potency, are subject to bewilderment, and the third energy, which is full of ignorance, is always visible in fruitive activities. So this is what they teach you in school, to be engaged in fruitive activities. What does that mean? That you want to enjoy the fruit selfishly for yourself. That's why someone builds a $130 million house and fills it up with junk. And like, for example, he has these special rooms in there. There's a room for working out. There's a room for all kinds of sophisticated computers and security stuff and communications and so forth. There's a room, there's like a basketball court, and there's a swimming pool. There's all these things in the house, right? And so that's the sign of ignorance, of overindulgence in fruitive activities. And it is a huge security system in that property. It's over 3 acres in Medina. And why such a security system? To keep out evil people, robbers, whatever, so that he can enjoy that sense gratification and have it, perpetually. Well, actually, it's going to come to an end. Nothing is perpetual. So you can see how Prabhupada has summarized the whole thing as avidya karma sanganya, which means basically ignorance manifested by fruitive activities, activities meant for one's selfishness and selfish desires. Then again, it says, the separated material energy can be understood from a practical example. I compose books, Prabhupada is speaking about himself, by speaking into a dictaphone. And when the dictaphone is replayed, it appears that I am speaking personally, but actually I am not. I spoke personally, but then the dictaphone tape, which is separate from me, acts exactly like me. Similarly, the material energy originally emanates from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but it acts separately, although the energy is supplied by the Lord. This is also explained in Bhagavad Gita 9.10, Maya Dakshina Pakriti, Suyate Sachirachara. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. Under the guidance or superintendence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the material energy works as if independent, although it is not actually independent. Scientists will swear to you. They will swear. They'll put their hand on their Bible, which is a pornography book, and they'll claim that the material energy is acting independently. There's nothing behind it. It happened by a big bang, and the species started from a single amoeba somewhere on the North Pole, and then it evolved into human beings, and it's all going on by itself. This is a sign of ignorance. This is not knowledge. This is ignorance. They're teaching ignorance. They're teaching the ignorance manifested by fruitive activities, and the more you manifest it, the more you're considered a great personality, but you're the greatest idiot and dumbbell. So Gates is a dumbbell. He can't control his zipper. And although everyone thought, oh, he's such a great man, and you know, he's done some charity, he's a very charitable person, there's no doubt about it. That's something to his credit, obviously. But he can't control his zipper. And because of that, he's shamed now. And people see that he's like a juvenile kid that never grew up. See? Unfortunately. Okay, so it says, in this verse from the Vishnu Purana, the total energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is classified in three divisions, namely the spiritual or internal potency of the Lord, the marginal potency or Chitragya, the living entity, and the material potency, which is separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead and appears to act independently. See, he keeps making that point. It looks like it's independent, but it's not. You know, and in order to understand that it's not, you have to accept Bhagavad Gita. But the scientists and the philosophers and the atheists, they reject Bhagavad Gita. So this is the dilemma of the world. Like, for example, right now, this week, a bunch of things happened that is indicative of how mankind is not in control. You have the catastrophic flooding in Europe. You have unbelievable rioting in South Africa. They had to vacate the deities and all the devotees from their temple in Durban. They took the deities and they ran with them. And the blacks have destroyed hospitals, all businesses, looted the stores, and they were coming for the temple also. Now, we don't know, we haven't heard now whether they actually damaged the temple. But it was so serious that they took the deities and ran, and only left a few devotees in the temple. But everybody else ran. You see how temporary things are in the material world, right? So this is happening right now. Now, also, there are wildfires all over California and other western states. There's a huge drought going on. We're fortunate. I mean, there's fire up here also, but it's not as bad as California. And pretty soon, you know, like it's happened in previous years, all the smoke is going to come here, and that'll be another complication. And also, there's a very good chance that there could be a war between China and the United States. It's getting closer and closer to that. So anyway, we see that the material world is always in an upheaval. We're trying to find a permanent place where we can be happy, and it's impossible. It is impossible, because as long as people are engaged in canceling Krishna, canceling this verse, 9:10, in the 9th chapter, 10th verse, in the educational system, there's going to be trouble. Trouble for everybody. There's not going to be peace. There's not going to be happiness. There'll be some little glitter of happiness, but it's actually not real happiness. It's simply the temporary relief from pain. That's not real happiness. Okay, so it says here that when Srila Vyasadeva, by meditation and self-realization, saw the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he also saw the separated energy of the Lord standing behind him. Apasyat Purusham Purnam Mayam Cha Tad Apasrayam. Yeah, that's the second canto, and that's the first canto, 5th chapter, where this verse is mentioned. Yaya samoito jiva atmanam trigunatmakam. So anyway, it says, Vyasadeva realized that it is the separated energy of the Lord, the material energy, that covers the knowledge of the living entities. The separated material energy bewilders the living entities, and thus they work very hard under its influence, not knowing that they are not fulfilling their mission in life. The mission in life is to go back to Godhead. They're completely avoiding it. Unfortunately, most of them think that they are the body and should therefore enjoy the material senses irresponsibly, since when death comes, everything will be finished. This atheistic philosophy also flourished in India, where it was sometimes propagated by Charvaka Muni. And his theory was that as long as one lives, one should eat as much ghee as possible. In India, ghee, clarified butter, is a basic ingredient in preparing many varieties of food. Since everyone wants to enjoy nice food, Charvaka Muni advised that one eat as much ghee as possible. One may say, I have no money. How shall I purchase ghee? Charvaka Muni, however, says, if you have no money, then beg, borrow, or steal, but in some way secure ghee and enjoy life. For one who further objects that he will be held accountable for such unauthorized activities as begging, borrowing, and stealing, Charvaka Muni replies, you will not be held responsible. As soon as your body is burned to ashes after death, everything is finished. This is the religion of the atheist. The prayer of the atheist is, please, whoever, please, universe, when I die, let everything be finished. So yesterday, we started talking about something. Oh, I didn't bring my phone. Okay. I found that what I was talking about yesterday. There's a whole series of modern gurus, modern so-called gurus, they're kangaroos, and modern religionists, even Christians, that are preaching that you can order the universe, and they teach you the method how to do it. So I didn't bring my phone. So what? It's going to get late. I'll do it tomorrow. When you hear this, you can just laugh. It's so silly and stupid, but people believe it. That you can order the universe and get whatever you want. You know, and it's not talking about God, right? They don't mention God, it's the universe. So all this is because of modern education. It's all nonsense. And Prabhupada says, this is called ignorance, what Charvaka Muni was preaching. From Bhagavad-Gita it is understood that one does not die at the annihilation of his body. Nahanyate hanyamane sarire. The annihilation of one body involves changing to another. Tata dehantara prapti. Therefore, to perform irresponsible activities in the material world is very dangerous. That's the point. To be subjected to this modern education is very dangerous, because you'll be convinced that the goal of life is sense gratification, and at the end of life, when you die, it's all over. You're not responsible, right? So therefore, use this life for as much sense gratification. But previously, at least Charvaka Muni was saying, you should eat as much ghee as possible. But today, Even Charvaka Muni didn't say eat meat, because that would be a very stupid thing to do. But today, they eat meat. They don't even use ghee, they use dalda. They eat meat. So you can see how degraded this time is. Right? Your kids go to school in the lunchroom, they're seeing everybody eating meat. What kind of education is that? See? And then they start eating meat also sometimes. So, therefore, to perform irresponsible activities in the material world is very dangerous. Without knowledge of the spirit soul and its transmigration, people are allured by the material energy to engage in many such activities as if one could become happy simply by dint of material knowledge without reference to spiritual existence. Therefore, the entire material world and its activities are referred to as avidya karma samganya, which means ignorance manifested by fruitive activities or selfish activities, like Bill Gates, like Bezos, like everybody. Bigger and bigger houses, bigger cars, bigger stool, eating bigger meals, having bigger stool. Look at all the money they spend on the sewer system. You know how much it costs to get rid of all that stool that's being flushed down the toilet? It's a huge thing. That's why you have taxes, and on top of the taxes, they make you pay for taking away the trash. They make you pay for the sewer. They make you pay for all these things because people are engaged in sense gratification. Whereas before, in India, you can go and pass stool in the field and the sun dries it. Then I don't have to pay anything. You don't have to pay a damn penny, right? But here, to pass stool, you got to pay money, right? And anyway, it's all unnecessary. Therefore, the entire material world and its activities are referred to as avidya karma sanganya, ignorance manifested by fruitive activities. In order to dissipate the ignorance of the human beings who work under the material energy, which is separated from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Lord comes down to revive their original nature of spiritual activities. Yada yada hi dharma gyanir bhavati bharata. As soon as they deviate from their original nature, the Lord comes to teach them. Sarva dharmam parityaja mami comes saranam vraja. My dear living entities, give up all material activities and simply surrender unto me for protection. Bhagavad-Gita 1866. Are we teaching this to our kids? Give up all these nonsense activities, nonsense studying, nonsense things, and just surrender unto me for protection. We all need protection. Even the devotees, look, they had to grab their deities and run away because they were almost surrounded by these crazy black people. They wanted to burn the temple. They already burned hospitals. They burned and looted all the stores and ruined the lives of many people, mostly Indians, Gujaratis that live in South Africa. They were very rich, and even the temple, they want to destroy it. It's not the first time. It happens frequently where there's rioting there. Okay, so we'll stop right there on that negative note and continue again tomorrow, where we'll hear about how to order the universe for your sense gratification. Are there any questions? Yes, so you see, Prabhupada says very easily that therefore, to perform irresponsible activities in the material world is very dangerous. Very dangerous. Haribol. Srila Prabhupada ki